All right. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to Talk Openly. My name's Jack, and I am so blessed to be here with my Sangha friend, Daniel. Daniel, hello. How you doing? Right. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to
Whoops.
Talk Openly.
There goes that.
My name's
There goes that tab again. Hi everybody, experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. Hi Jack.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I'll get
Yes.
the hang of that YouTube streaming one of these days.
No problem. Yeah. No, I like these because they're kind of like a record of our process, you get to kind of see our growth and development. So for anyone who's been following along, maybe that's a little fun. I don't know. You're
Yeah.
in with us.
We've been doing this for a while. I think we're coming up on 100 episodes, is it total?
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. That's a
That's
lot.
really cool.
That's a lot of talking, Jack.
It's 100 hours of talking. We've spent like 4 whole days talking
Like around the clock.
around the clock.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
I can imagine doing that. We should do a marathon session one of these days.
Nice. Yeah. We'll be filibustering
Yeah, I
ourselves.
love it. I love it. That could be a goal for next year.
Great. Yes. Okay. Good. Well, tonight we're in the second half of our show. We're going to be talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is doubt. Um, so near and dear meaning that I know it very well, not that I actually like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a tough assignment myself.
Yeah.
I'm into doubt avoidance or ignorance of doubt. And so by peeling back a little bit, the notion of doubt and what it is and how it manifests, I uh I was like, "Oh my God, right. There it is. I haven't been looking at that."
I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah, I feel like hearing your process, I always learn something about myself as well, which is, one of the really awesome things about having a Sangha community. So for those who are listening, and if you're interested and you haven't, met a community of people who are also practicing, really recommend it. And one of those places is Lions Road Dharma Center in Sacramento. You can certainly check them out. That's where we're coming from. And yeah, there's nothing like being able to meet with people who are also on a similar path. It's
Ain't
important.
that the truth?
Yeah, yes. So we're going to talk about doubt in the second half of our show, but I'd love to see how things are going this week. Daniel, I really hope that you don't have another harrowing story of survival as you did last time.
No, not a harrowing tale.
Okay, good.
But I did survive officially as of today. I have survived this incarnation for 47 years. Yep,
Woo!
yep. It's our
Happy
birthday show.
birthday.
My birthday show. Yeah, yeah. No, exact 47 years old. It's such a strange thing. I'm like, that person that's in like the person in me, the kid is still there, and I'm like, that's nearly like, you round up, that's half a century. It's a long
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
Uh,
That's really cool. Well, happy birthday. How's it been? What have you been doing?
Thank you, thank you. Well, I started off with a nice long gym session with my daughter. We
Nice.
hit it hard. Uh,
What?
Yeah, no, she was like, it's your routine, today's your birthday, so you can pick the routine and how long we do it. So we did a little longer, went a little harder. But I'll probably pay the price. I am almost half a century old, so there is that. But no, it's been pretty cool, pretty mostly laid back. Like, just some work and some lots and lots of, you know, text messages and social media and whatever. I can never tell why my phone's vibrating, but it like
Yeah.
kind of goes crazy on my birthday.
You're well loved.
Yeah, even by people who haven't the faint, like, like they're just pushing a button on LinkedIn or something and it just says send Daniel a
Yeah.
birth. And I'm like, I don't know you, but thanks, that's
Yeah.
that's cool.
It
No,
is kind of sweet.
no,
Those
it's
like
nice.
random.
People I haven't talked to in a long time, come out. There are those friends, who, I hold dear, even family members, that the only messages between us are happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. And that's
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
so it's kind of strange how it brings, I don't know, makes it kind of illuminates my life a little bit. Both in
Mhm,
retrospect, then also through my connections. It's
mhm.
pretty sweet, like I like it. I'm like, oh, look at this. This is family. This is like friends. This is my song guys. These are my teachers. This is my, like all the way down the list. There's like people in all facets of life thinking of me, wishing me a happy birthday. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that is
Especially as
awesome.
someone, I didn't grow up celebrating birthdays, and I've generally avoided them um pretty hard. I
Mhm.
still have sort of active avoidance in this area, but I'm softening a little bit now in my older
Yeah.
years. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of nice actually.
Yeah. Well, and the way you're describing it too is like it's actually more of a reflection of your interdependence with all these other people rather than just like you like the
Mhm.
individual who's receiving all of that. But yeah, it's really a community that comes together on someone's birthday, which is really sweet.
Yeah, I like the way that you're phrasing that. It's nice.
Do you feel that way?
I do.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No,
Totally.
totally. That's why I like it. That resonates. That's exactly what it feels like.
Nice. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so all in all, pretty good. In fact, right after this show, my daughters are taking me out for ice cream.
Yes. Nice.
So we're gonna go to a ice cream's one of it ice cream Sacramento's most loved ice cream spots.
Gunther's?
Yep, yep,
Yes.
exactly. I'm gonna get a fruit freeze. So
Yes. Oh, it's so good. It's
yeah,
so
I'll
good.
be thinking of you.
Nice.
I'll be like, and this one right here, this one's for Jack.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't had one of those in probably years now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so good.
So yeah, that's things are pretty good. Jack, my practice is sporadic and it's a little
Okay.
bit, yeah, my I'm not quite sure. It may be possible that some amount of doubt, self-doubt or whatever has crept in. So I'm kind of interested in this show tonight
Hmm.
where there's this yeah, maybe it has something to do with doubt. But there's also just general sort of resistance that's sort of building up. I think maybe we've touched on it ever so slightly in
Yeah.
past weeks, but yeah, I feel like it's like a one of those wild horses that's like rearing up and stuff. That's sort of a need to sort of like, okay, come on, sit
Hmm.
down, you could do it. And so now I'm trying to take my own advice here, which is to just do a little bit every day, right?
Yeah.
Like where I'm like, I recognize the truth in that, where I'm like, okay, fine. I see like right now, for whatever reason, the causes and conditions are sufficient that you're not like super duper committed to your like a regular practice, whatever that is. But that mean not the regularity of the practice, but like sort of the length of the practice routine.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, just letting myself do like 6 minutes here, 6 minutes there. Um, it's helpful. But I see,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, right, like I gotta keep, keep going at this because I'm not a big fan of sort of what happens with my mind as I become less and less mindful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm, I'm a little bit going through something similar. But I was curious, how long has it been since you've taken refuge?
Oh my goodness. 2 years now? Going on 2 years?
Years? I feel like I also had a similar experience with my motivation and um, my joyous effort, like right around then too. Because I remember my first year or two is like, it's beginner's mind where it's like everything's just it's like really exciting and like rejuvenating.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, oh my God, yeah, I found a path. Like this is where I'm going.
Right.
But in the last couple years, the last few years, it's a little bit more like, oh, okay, this is like this is just my new daily. And with that is my usual self,
Yeah.
you know, that I have to contend with. And so, yeah, I wonder if that kind of like, it's almost like new relationship energy, but like with Dharma practice.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's going on, is that there's this, it's sort of interesting the way life sends, sort of teachings your way. And it seems like right now that's kind of a, I don't know, sort of like a focal point for me. Is that in fact what I think I know is running up against what's becoming clearer, right? Clearer.
Mm,
In the sense that one of the things that I find so incredibly, terribly frustrating, we touched on this at the end of the show on the gods, was that, or is rather, that all of this seems so freaking human, right? And that's the hard part for me, is that samsara and nirvana are the same, they're not different, they're not exclusive, they're not like necessarily like separate realities, right? Like
yeah,
it's and that part of it where I recognize that I've sort of like built up an attachment to some kind of mystical, like even if I can talk, I know that, not to do that. I'm aware of like spiritual materialism, and I get it, but at the same time now I see that actually the work is about living as a human being here now with these people, and that
yeah,
all of it's like very, very human, you
yeah,
know? Like, and I'm like, oh, like really? This boring human mundane stuff, that's where the work is, that's what it's all
yeah,
about, this relative reality. Like I gotta like, I can't
yeah,
escape it now, I can't just like be done with it, right? Like
yeah.
this is what I'm working with, Jack.
I know, I know. Damn. I love
And-
it. It sounded like you almost said ew.
right, well, that's it. No, I have said ew. It's weird, and it's like waking up every single day and I'm like, right, this is what I'm working with,
This is
right?
it.
Like
Yeah.
rather than of some kind of imagination, like it's not an imaginary thing. It's like real, like it's real, like as real as this like 47-year-old body and all these interdependencies, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah, and there's this part of me that really chafes against that. Like as I begin to see a little bit clearer the way things are, there's a part of me that is sad, that
Yeah,
grieves a little bit over the loss of of my own ideas about the way things are, or the way I think they ought to be or should be or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so like I really don't like, I'm like, on the one hand I'm like, yeah, turn up the light, let's see this stuff, I want to see clearly, and then I'm like
Totally. Yeah, that it's we're not transcending this
well,
reality.
to the
Yeah.
degree that transcendence includes this reality, I think it's fair to
Yeah.
say transcendence, but there's no avoidance of it. It's not
Yeah.
a
There's no avoidance. Yeah.
No, it's not avoidance. And it's such a, and I really do think that that's a big part of what's happening with me right now, is like this, it's like what you described, where I'm like, oh, like this is just like light, like, so like Buddhism is not some kind of a special, like, you're gonna get to have all kinds of transcendental magical experiences or whatever, maybe, but that's not, it's really like what we're talking about, all this mind training, everything is really about working with this stuff, with our nature, right, to make the best
Yeah.
of it for ourselves and for others. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really good, but now I have doubts. Now I've got some doubts.
Yeah, totally. Because if we're just working with this, man, I have a lot of doubts. Oh, that's funny. Well, you're not alone.
No, no.
I'm in it, I'm
Yeah.
in that same kind of stream. And I I know that others are as well. So we're
Yeah,
human.
yeah. What's that old phrase? Like I used to laugh at it. I still do, but it's the old notion of like, uh, what's it like before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yep.
What's it like after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. Or
Yeah.
like that Donovan song, right? In the beginning there was a mountain, then there was no mountain, then there is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, like it was
Oh,
I was sort of attached to the no mountain part of it.
yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
And now there's a freaking mountain and I gotta climb it or whatever.
Yep, totally. Yeah, yeah. And I think the chop wood, carry water one is like, oh, I'll somehow like not care anymore. Like there'll be like this, like maybe my ideas of liberation are that I'm somewhat just kind of apathetic. Like I don't actually care, so I'm just like doing all the tasks, right? But in a whatever liberated kind of apathetic way. And I don't think that that's what liberation is.
It could be that that's like a mini version of liberation of some sort.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like something that you could do temporarily. Like they say sometimes about people who reach a certain level of enlightenment or they attain nirvana, so to speak, that okay, like that's nice, but then after a little while the Buddhas come along and nudge them and are like, hey, psst,
Yeah, you got some stuff to do.
there's still some more to do.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's funny. Hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not in a dissimilar boat. We'll have plenty to talk about tonight. But I was curious, something that I'm working with is that I'm in like a smaller space now where it's like my room is like right next to the living room and there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of sound. Um, and I noticed and maybe this is a good thing, but like I noticed this kind of like bitterness sometimes around like I don't have my space, like I don't have
Yeah.
this kind of like sacred
Yeah.
separate space that's away from all of the humans and the sound,
Right. Right.
you know? So I was curious if you have any, I don't know, suggestions. I know you live with other humans too, and anything that kind of helps you with that, like all the distractions, really.
Yeah. Um, it reminds me actually of one of the most sort of striking moves that I had like yours, where, I've moved a lot, but I'd gone from living in like family with wife and two kids and like large land house, like kind of family life,
Mm.
uh, to and that was on the East Coast, to being separated, divorced, and living in a one bedroom house with two kids,
Yeah.
right? Like tiny, tiny. There was like a kitchen, tiny little living room, and a bedroom and a tiny little bathroom. And then we
Mm.
split the bedroom. They had like a bunk bed on one side, and I had my bed on the other, right?
Wow.
And and then like it was drastic, like pretty drastic shift for me, and the other people, like the others, that having to to come into contact with, deal with, whatever. I was like raw,
Yeah.
and I think that um maybe just a little bit, like the only thing that kind of was helpful in that time period was sort of what you're already doing, which is
Mm.
this like turning outward, with this towards people, opening up towards people, because otherwise it feels like a little hermit shell or something crawling in and trying to find the center, but then the outside keeps pressing into the center more and more and more and more, and it gets like really tight and more raw and more unpleasant. And so like
Mhm.
I think it's one of those things where like just turning outward towards, the everybody, both within close proximity, but then extending outward that way is the most helpful. But that transition period, of acclimating to new people and new environments and things like that, it is irritating,
Mhm.
you know. But it
Yeah.
was cool. The cool thing that I've experienced in every one of those situations is after like, oh, 3, 4 months, something like that, it's the new, like, this is how it is. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I love it, right? Like, this is cool. I love how this stuff is, and
Yeah.
then you'll be missing it when you move to the next place, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
For sure. Yeah, and I can sense that happening. There's
Yeah.
ways that I really love this place. But yeah, sometimes especially in the evening, sitting for meditation is really hard.
Yeah.
Because the living room is in use by two other adult humans
Yeah.
and they're doing all the things and that's, I'm not going to tell them to stop.
No, no, no. I have these headphones, Jack. So I have a similar situation. There's oftentimes noises going on close by that aren't conducive to meditation. And I've got sort of three things to say about it. One of them
Yeah.
is, all right, wake up before them
Yeah.
and do it that even, like whatever. So it may make sense to like wake up at freaking 3 o'clock in the morning, do meditation and sleep in until 7. I don't know, something like that might
Hmm.
might be helpful. But I have these headphones, right? And they have white noise sound canceling. So like
Hmm.
really, really good for like airplanes and things like that. And I thought this is going to be good for meditation. It wasn't.
No, I've tried white noise before. You know what
No.
happens with me is I start hearing like voices. Like
Yeah.
I don't hear voices in other circumstances, but
Yeah.
like with white noise, I'll like be hearing stuff and it's like, no, no, that's not
Oh
gonna work.
wow. Yeah. Yeah, but no, no, it creates like a weird fodder for your mind,
Yeah,
and it can do, yeah, it can do, I don't like it.
I don't
That's all
like
I
it
can
either.
say. It feels like I'm really leaning into a version at that point.
Yes.
And
Same.
I
Yeah,
don't like that where I'm like feeling it's a little bit like that sort of like get out of my shell, right? Like
exactly.
I'm here in the center
Exactly.
of my shell and I don't want you coming in, right? I'm,
Yeah.
like don't get any deeper into the mandala. I'm in the middle, you guys stay out there.
Right.
Right?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is really helpful because I think kind of what I've been leaning towards is that like, okay, this right now, this is my karma for right now. Like this is, where it's at. And yeah, I don't have ideal conditions for meditation all the time, but do I have them sometime? Yes. And when I don't have them, is it possible for me to integrate that experience as my meditation? Like that's
Yeah.
that's what we're working towards is at least in shamatha, I'm supposed to be really focusing on whatever my object is. And so, that's part of it. That kind of external distraction is
Yeah.
it's kind of just the same as an internal distraction, right? Like,
What's the
because
difference really, actually? Not
right,
not
and
much.
that's the thing is that in the morning, especially if I like let myself sleep in a bit, and so I'm pretty groggy,
Hmm.
what happens, my mind is just like it's like on loop. It does
Yeah.
not stop. And so even it'll be like 5 in the morning and no one else is awake. There's no sounds happening, but I am even more distracted. So it's
It's
funny how
almost like you've got one of those leaf blower people in your mind.
it's really I really do. And they come, first thing in the morning
Like, can
and
you
just
wait until 8 o'clock? Please. And why are you even doing that? It doesn't make any sense.
right, exactly. I love that. Maybe I can bring that image to mind.
I remember when I was meditating with our friend Sue on her front porch. There was, man, where she lived was noisy as all get out. I mean, like it was
Yeah.
stupid. There was always lots and lots of noise and people out doing things. And I was always out there on the front porch. And it was pretty cool. I
Yeah.
liked I began in the beginning, I was like, it was sort of disorienting, like this is not the proper place, to be doing this. And then but then as I like leaned into it and kind of enjoyed I was like, I don't have a this is, this is what I'm doing, right? This is how
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I'm not changing that. Then all of a sudden it was cool to observe, like to begin to see the way that the sound aspect of, mind, the qualities of mind, how they are, right? Like to literally like bring like, okay, bring them in. And then what's fun about it is when people are talking or there's music going or whatever, or somebody yelling through a bullhorn, from a helicopter, whatever. whatever it is that's happening, what's interesting is that we notice that the mind naturally wants to sort of interpret it from its
Yeah.
own. We're like trying to figure out, what are they saying? Have I seen an old person dressed in such and such wandering around? Like, right. So you're trying to sort of like pay attention. But if you just notice it sort of in its pure energy format, just like in its kind of raw, non-filtered state, then boy, it takes on completely different qualities,
Yeah,
and
most
the
definitely.
experience, it becomes quite kind of like open and kind of like, for lack of a better word, kind of pure, you
Yeah.
know like
Yeah.
it's just big, wide open, lots of noises, like lots of colors in the sky or something. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that reminds me one of the meditations where it felt like I was making a little pinprick, as we
Mhm.
talked about, like a pinprick in the paper over the window, um, was at a park outside, a really busy Sacramento park. And my object was a visualization of Vajrasattva. And then everything around me, I mean, it was just like there were kids screaming and playing. There was loud music, kind of cars driving by and birds. And it was just so beautiful. I could just stay there with Vajrasattva and everything was Vajrasattva,
That's
everything
right.
was that. So yeah, that there is quite an interesting experience one can.
Yeah, and that aspect of it is somewhat playful, right? But it's good mindfulness practice, or good,
Yeah.
mind training. I think I've told you about the it's not really happening anymore, but these people that used to do donuts right outside the house. I think I've mentioned them in the past, screeching their tires and all of that. In the beginning, I was like, they shouldn't
Yeah.
be here. I should do something, all kinds of that kind of stupid stuff. And then one day I was like, well, maybe I can transform my relationship with those screeching tires and the belching smoke and all of that. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, that's all the sound is that sound is the voice of the Buddhas, speaking to
Mhm.
me of joy and impermanence and attachment and all of, like, singing to me, right? And then I would start like laughing, kind of. I'd hear him coming down the street, and I'd be like, all right, like, is it true? Because then I could watch, right? If I was all irritated and bothered by it, then I wasn't hearing the voice of the Buddhas. But then
Yeah,
when I chilled out of it, I'm like, just like let it be. Then all of a sudden it means something different.
nice.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, how much um perspective we can shift is really amazing.
Yeah, we could do
Um,
180s, we can do 360s,
we can
whatever.
do donuts.
We could do donuts with our leaf blowers.
Right. Well, my friend, should we do some mind training? We're sure we've got so much to talk about tonight.
I
I feel like
know.
we
I
could just
know.
keep going on this,
It's
but we
fun.
gotta we gotta move on to doubt.
We, we, we
I
got
really gotta talk about doubt.
we got things to do.
Got
All right.
things to do, but first we're gonna check out some Lojong mind slogans
All
and
right.
this wonderful random Lojong slogan generator. Number 54, train wholeheartedly. All right, so we're going to check out what Traleg Kyabgon says. A wholehearted commitment is about seeing something through to the end. It's not about making a big splash to see what happens, thinking that all is well and good if things work out, and then moving on to something else if they don't. A total wholehearted commitment doesn't involve sporadic outbursts, but rather a judicious expenditure of energy over the long term. This is like what we've been talking about. Courage is also an essential element in our practice, and it's far better to overestimate what we want to achieve than to underestimate it. We should never think I'll just aim small because I only have the capacity to become a slightly better person. Our expectations must be realistic, and we have to fulfill them in a graduated manner, but we should always set our goals high and do what we can without hope or fear.
I feel called out.
I feel God. Me too. What the hell? It's funny because I wanted to bring something up that I heard in a video that I was listening to about doubt and the Dharma. And it was kind of like reinforcing a little bit. There was like this encouragement to actually set your goals somewhat low, so that you can achieve them and feel some confidence. So that was kind of like, okay, cool, because that's what I'm doing right now.
I put my training wheels back on.
Right. But I think there's a time for everything, right? And so
Including
there's
training wheels.
right, yeah. But how beautiful. This just really resonates with me with everything that I'm kind of experiencing right now. And then just this discussion on doubt. Like,
Yeah.
um,
It's hard. You can't have a total wholehearted commitment when you're
doubt.
constantly doubting. It's not to say that doubt isn't part of the process. Of course it is, right? But that this sort of the problem with sort of ongoing doubt, problematic doubt, is that it zaps our energy. It takes the wind right out of our sails, and we don't put a lot of effort into things, right? Like the effort begins to drop off because it's wavering. There's because of that doubt. At least that's my own experience with it. And so this is really good motivation,
Yeah.
or encouragement, this particular slogan.
Yeah. I think also whenever that phrase, without hope or fear, or like beyond hope or fear shows up, something about that is just so inspiring to me. Um, I think that, in part because like I really lean heavy on the hope part because I think I have a lot of fear. And so to move beyond that binary of hope and fear, God, that just, how freeing would that be?
That's liberation right there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Hmm. Let's see that picture down there. I'm curious. Ah,
Hmm.
uh,
23 deity Nairatma Mandala.
cool. I don't know Nairatma.
Me either. It's not a high enough resolution. I can't quite like zoom in on it, get higher resolution, but it's pretty.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Hmm.
Mandalas are special, aren't they?
Indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, that kind of launched us into doubt.
Yeah.
Um, how interesting that we're both kind of struggling with doubt in our practice right now.
Well, I'm kind of upset about this because
You are?
I wasn't struggling with it consciously
Yeah.
until somehow I got suggested that we talk about it. And now I'm like, oh no, I'm consciously struggling with this. I get it. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's better that way. It's better
Yeah,
that way. Surface. Let it surface.
it's true. It's true. This is the work. This is what this is what we're on about. This is what we're trying to do, is to
Yeah.
uncover it and to deal with these hindrances, which, doubt's one of the five hindrances. It's oftentimes mentioned, right, in terms of
Yeah.
Buddhist practice. I listed them. I couldn't, I don't think it's not one of the ones that I've like committed to memory, but I listed them. It's sensual desire, sloth and torpor,
Mm.
restlessness and worry. And then I think what's interesting, and I remember this from my talk on effort, is that doubt, especially self-doubt, doubting our ability to follow this path, um, is probably the greatest hindrance.
Mm. And why is that?
Well, it's because of the way the conditioning of the mind, sort of how it works, is that it's sort of an efficiency engine, right? And so it once it learns something, it sort of sets that down, and it kind
Ah,
of sets a pattern of expectations, right? And so what happens is, like, let's just say you, like in my case, I'll give you a perfect example of this. Like, I'm meditating, I have this regular practice, this routine, it's going swimmingly. And then for whatever reason, I don't meditate for 2 or 3 days in a row. then that this doubt begins. I'm like, oh, do I really have to be meditating every day? Is that routine really beneficial? Is it okay to do without it on a day or two? And then, okay, now day 4 or 5, whatever, it goes on. And then what's sick about it is that then there's this belief in our own inability. Like, I can't meditate. I'm not good enough to meditate, or I'm unable to meditate. There's something wrong with me. I can't meditate, right? And this
Mm,
isn't just about meditation. I'm just using that as an example, right? But if we doubt our own abilities, like we think back on some time that we were unable to do something and then we project into the future, we'll continually set up that exact same pattern of starting and failing, starting and failing, starting and failing, right?
yeah.
Because that's sort of that's the pattern that we set up for ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
so it's one of my favorite quotes is by William Shakespeare. He
Mm,
says, "Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt." And I
mm,
think that's another way of saying something kind of similar to that, right? Like, we want something, we have this urge for growth, for movement, right? And then we have this desire for comfort, and there's
yeah.
this there's
Yeah.
we struggle with that, right? And then we're like, we set up sometimes these patterns where we're like, I'm not even going to try, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. Which is right. That's like a perfectionist mind, right?
It
Ooh,
is.
doubt. Yeah, doubt is such the like yeah, the death of the perfectionist, right? Because if you can't do it perfectly, then why do anything at all?
I don't
And
know. If it's all
I
going to fail in the end, Jack, right?
right? Yeah.
If it's
Right.
all going to fall apart anyway and nothing's permanent, I don't know. Maybe.
Right. So why do anything at all? Yeah, I get stuck in that one big time.
Yeah.
Um one way that I uh doubt the Dharma, I doubt the teaching is that I'll get really stuck in kind of like cynicism around things that are happening in the world. And my thought is just kind of like, well, like, what does compassion actually have to do with any of this? Like, why, like I'll kind of go there where it's like, um, actually, no, we just need to be approaching this politically. And that's going to take, some aggression and, like I get in that kind of spiral where it's like, I don't trust compassion. I don't trust that the path is the way to peace and liberation. So that's one that kind of gets me is when I get stuck in kind of like everyday um, uh, mindset rather than kind of like, okay, I understand that we're all um, experiencing multiple infinite lifetimes. Like I can't just focus on this one life. But then sometimes I kind of doubt, that too. I'm like, well, do
Well,
I
that's
believe in
yeah.
multiple lifetimes? And how about, isn't it just about like this life and how terrible everyone's suffering here? Like I get a little
Right, right.
wrapped up in
No,
that. Yeah.
exactly that. And that's what's so treacherous about doubt is
Yeah.
that it can hide and it can infect your thinking in such ways that you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that can be, pervasive. And then if you're like me, then, somebody suggests that you shine a light on it or whatever. Now it's like, ah, oh my God, look at all these monsters. I can't believe they're all here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they've just been sneaking, trying to actually go under the radar, right?
Oh,
Because
they
like,
totally want to go under the radar. Then you don't futz with them and they can grow strong.
yeah, yeah,
Ah,
yeah. I learned that. So you brought up that doubt is maybe the most dangerous of the hindrances, and something that I learned is that when we really go to the extreme of doubt, what happens is that we're really unable to hear the Dharma, and it just doesn't sink in, and even like we feel aversion for teachers, and they aren't able to teach us. So doubt like can really push us away from learning or even being able to reflect that we are experiencing doubt. Um, so yeah, it is something to bring to the surface. That is for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt. I saw this article, it was by Philip Moffat on dharmawisdom.org.
Uh-huh.
And this was the most helpful article. It was really, really well written. It's called Lost in Doubt.
Hmm.
Philip Moffat. I totally recommend it. And he talked about a number of things here. I try not to just read it from his stuff, but one of the things I really appreciated was that he broke doubt into different types. And he was like in his own experience, he said, what he recognizes is these slightly different types of doubt, one of them being skeptical doubt. And he was like, that's totally beneficial, right? Like essentially,
Yeah.
the Buddha said, be a lamp unto yourself, right? Use your own direct experience. Like, and there's a way to use skeptical doubt, like, and have mindfulness as, look into things. Like, that's fine. That's good. We ought to be doing that. So that's what he calls skeptical doubt. And then he talks about my favorite, nihilistic and cynical doubt. Um, and I kind of I like this. I like this classification because he said, because this is sort of near and dear to me, right? Like I'm like I have this streak of nihilism and I'm sort of cynical. And he says this type of doubt, they are negative belief systems disguised as doubt. He's
Fun.
like, this isn't even doubt, it's dogma. And
Ah.
yeah, right. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
he's like, so he's like,
Uh-huh.
you know these people when they're filled with this type of doubt, they're negative, suspicious, convinced that everyone and everything is inherently flawed or exploitive. And this
Yep.
is true for me. This one got me
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, I was like, I'm not overly negative, I'm not overly suspicious, but then when I'm like, is everyone and everything inherently flawed and exploitive? Well, I mean, kind of seems like maybe, yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always looking for proof of that. And there's this, because I don't have
Mm.
beginner's mind, I have this knowingness. I know that my nihilism and cynicism is justified because this is the nature of people, yada, 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 whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
I block, as you said, I can't hear the Dharma. I can't see the truth because I just am projecting onto the world this dogmatic stance of saying this is how it is when that's not how it is. It couldn't be that way, right?
Yeah. How
Yeah. So
interesting. That is really eye-opening, where it's like, yeah, that it's actually these worldviews, these core beliefs that are kind of driving our everyday experience. It reminds me of this conversation I had with someone close to me a couple years ago. Um, and she's Christian. And she mentioned something about, I think I was talking about something related to like abolitionism, where it's like, I
mhm.
wish there were kind of alternatives to, punitive prison sentences and whatnot, and just finding different ways of working with people who have harmed. And what she said was like, well, in my belief system, we believe that all people are inherently sinful, that like once you're born, you are just like, you are marked by sin.
Yeah.
You have to prove to God and to everyone else that you are deserving of like compassion and kindness. And I was just like, wow,
Mhm.
that is, that just feels incredibly cynical to me.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like I realized how that kind of idea is somewhat prevalent in my mind stream too.
Yep.
Not just because I was raised Christian, but like um even my kind of like radical political ideas too, where it's like, well, people are just kind of fucked up. Like capitalism has destroyed
Yep.
people's sensibilities and we're all just greedy now. Like that has got me really bitter too. And so how amazing that, the Dharma teaches us, like, actually all of that is so backwards. Like, in fact, at the core of each sentient being is, the capacity to become a Buddha. So I can see how, like, I have so much work to do that would help me with doubt if I am able to shift my perspective into that Buddhist worldview of everyone, for one, everyone's just trying to be happy, and we all have this capacity to become a Buddha. um when I can be there, man, my experience of the world is so different.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
And it's amazing, and it's real. That's the thing, is that, like, like people become and are just beautiful, amazing, yes, complicated and confused, but, like, I can see their goodness. um and I maybe that's a good sign for me when I'm, like, kind of off of my training or off in
Yeah,
practice, when I'm starting to feel pretty cynical about people
right.
and kind of, I guess, having doubt about their nature, right?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, right? That there's a reason why right understanding is the first of the Eightfold Path, right?
Mm,
Right? Is that if we start with the wrong understanding, all kinds of wrong conclusions can come from that line of thinking and
yeah,
behaving, right? So, it makes sense that, like you're saying, like when you can start with that broader, more open, less restrictive, less oppressive perspective, then things can sort of manifest themselves as such, right? Like
yeah,
things are more. It doesn't mean that everything becomes like totally pretty and beautiful and everything is right with the world,
yeah,
but a lot like the beauty that we're sort of ignoring or turning ourselves away from, we can see that, right? Whereas the other mentality has already collapsed and said, that's all, like I'm not, don't even look over there. It's so bad.
right, 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 for sure. Yeah, so doubt kind of collapses our even curious engagement to see, like, if the Dharma is present, in our minds and in the world. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, we kind of future cast, right? We're, like, kind
Yeah,
of forecasting into the future that, like, oh no, those people aren't going to be good, or no, I can't be good, because I've already decided. Like, it's already been made clear that, like, nope, there's not actual goodness in the world.
that's
um
right.
it's
You already
amazing.
know it. There's no beginner's mind there. You already know.
Yeah. Oh man.
A
Yeah.
lot of the trouble around doubt has to do with the fact that it's all about uncertainty, right? And
Yeah.
that's the one thing that we really cannot stand is uncertainty. And
Yeah,
yet life is uncertain, right?
that's
So
right.
it's I remember Lama telling me one time, he said, people can accomplish many powerful things with certainty.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not saying good things necessarily, whatever, but like, like there, if you know for a fact, whatever, God made you in 8 days and, he's going to send you to hell if you don't do X, Y, and this, and like you just have the truth in your heart. There's no need to like worry about anything else. You can focus on making your riches or conquering the world or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you want to do, right? Like you can focus on that and make it happen. Whereas if you live with uncertainty, maybe your actions don't appear quite as powerful or could
Yeah.
not, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very interesting.
So there
One
was
thing.
this
Mhm.
can I mention the last of the doubt types
Yeah,
that
sure. Please
Philip
do.
Mott had pointed out? So the first one was skeptical doubt, the other one was nihilistic and cynical, which we were just talking about. And the last one he categorized as reactive doubt,
Hmm.
right? And I see sort of like a little bit of there's like an overlay, right? Some shared territory between these types, but he says that the reactive doubt is the type that arises from causes and conditions. So it's like from disappointment, uncertainty, experience of failure, like an old belief
Mm.
about yourself.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
and what's really interesting is so like this type of doubt might be similar to the others, but if you can analyze it, if you can bring it to the cushion with you, and in fact, that's the advice on all of these doubts. Bring it, go ahead, bring
Yep.
it to the cushion, right? Including the nihilistic, cynical doubt, right?
Hmm.
It's like the Buddha inviting Mara in for tea or something, right? Like you don't
Right.
turn away from, you don't say no, I don't doubt. No, I reckon I see you doubt. Hello, come on in.
Yeah. Come on in.
And the cool thing about the reactive doubt is that when we really see impermanence, right, and we're like, oh, I'm mindfully considering how this came to be based upon these causes and conditions. They're impermanent, right? And it's, allow it to move on, recognize it. And then you don't get so trapped in that cycle of doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can sense that. Yeah. And it's hard for me to want to invite doubt in, but I think it's so important to be able to identify it, and to say, "Hey, I recognize you."
Yeah.
And I'm not just going to let you slip in the door. I'm going to let you in.
Right? Right.
Right?
Right.
Like it's not going to be sneaky. I'm going to recognize that that's here. So that, I can work with it rather than let it kind of permeate the whole situation.
That's right. That's right. Like they say the stories about Mara showing up for Buddha's teachings, and then some of the people who are listening would be like, "Hey, look, Mara's over there skulking in the corner or whatever," right? And then Buddha would be
Mhm.
like, "Mara, I see you, buddy.
Uh-huh.
See you over there. Let's come
Yeah.
out into the light, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be gentle, right? I mean, that story tells it is like with any of our afflictions, but I think, um, what is doubt trying to do? In some ways it's trying to protect us. It feels like, like you were saying, this uncertainty, like we can't deal with it, and so doubt is saying like, okay, well, come back, like just don't even try, like just kind of sit in your, what don't push beyond.
Yeah.
And so in some ways it's trying to protect. But so if we can be a little bit kind, I don't think Mara's trying to protect, but um uh
No, but you're right, right? Like the doubt is natural. I
yeah.
liked what I saw this TED talk by Peter Sage. Peter Sage gave a TED talk about doubt. And
Mm,
when he was talking about it as a natural shared human experience, I really liked the way that he said this. Let me see here. He says, our nervous system is hardwired for comfort, whereas our soul is hardwired for growth. And it's managing that dynamic tension between how good a comfort zone feels and the innate calling of our potential that lies outside of that causes the frustration for most people and keeps them on that hamster wheel of mediocrity.
ouch. But good.
Yeah, yeah, but it's common, right? It's like
Yeah.
we're primed for it, sort of,
Yeah.
there's goodness sort of in the efficiency of all of this wiring, right? Like that's fine, but we want it to work really, really well. And there's nothing wrong with doubt. Doubt can be incredibly helpful, but
Yeah.
there's like helpful doubt and then there's unskillful doubt, right? Like when we
Yeah.
allow it to linger and fester and hide in the corners, right? And
Yeah.
that's actually, Jack, that was it. That was the other thing that Philip Moffat in his article, one of the things that he brought up, which I found really interesting, it was just one more interesting point was
Mm.
he was talking about the prevalence of doubt denial, right?
Mm.
Especially in spiritual communities. What happens is people are so afraid of
Yeah.
doubting that
Yeah.
they'll deny the doubt left and right. They will not
Mm.
acknowledge it, they cannot see it. And that those kinds of blinders are not helpful either.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds like a recipe for cult like behavior.
Yeah.
To kind of put the blinders up about doubt. Um, yeah, I mean, that was one thing that was very refreshing to me about our Sangha is that people were willing to talk about how difficult things are,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's not all like just kind of a beautiful like Zen koan type, like looking at
Mm,
lotuses. Like it's really hard and you might feel like you want to drop out and that's valid, and that really
yeah.
helped me. That actually I think helped me so much with my doubt.
Yes.
Just to know that like, okay, this is like these are real human beings who are just putting in the work and kind of, like what we were talking about at the beginning of our show is like, we're having some frustration with like the just humanness
Yeah.
of our practice. And yet, how interesting that at the same time, that was one of the things that really helped me decide to dive in was recognizing the humanness of people's um, doubt and difficulty on the journey.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Funny.
no, exactly that. I think that this talking openly, this being able to share openly, to be honest and candid, vulnerable, naked in front of others, right? Like we have the security, the safety to know that this is a safe place. Our Sangha is a safe place to be that way, right? And
Yeah.
that and when we call out, there will be a response that lets us know we're not alone, right? Not at all. Tara
Mhm.
Brock actually, when she was talking about doubt in one of her like podcasts, she alludes to this the moment when Buddha's sort of right to enlightenment, if you will, was being challenged by Mara, and Mara's like, who says you're enlightened, basically, and Buddha puts his hand down on the earth, right? And Tara Brock likens this. She says that's like calling out to Mother Earth or the larger sort of life forces as your witness, right? And she likened that to us turning to greater sources of support. So meaning exactly this, that we should lean on our Sangha, lean on our teacher, right? We should lean on these spiritual friends of ours, right? And that's really important. That sharing, not hiding, but sharing, talking about it, hearing what other people's experiences are, there's real benefit in that. And it'll shine the light on and make that doubt clear up real quick.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. Some faith, some element of faith in our friends and our teachers, because we can see it, we can see how the Dharma has changed them and it's inspiring.
That's right. Faith is the antidote, but it's not, we're not talking about belief.
Yeah, yeah,
It's faith based upon our own direct experience.
right, right.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, allowing us to fully feel everything we're feeling, not rejecting, not
Mm,
rejecting those doubts, but yeah, letting them be there. And then, yeah, it's kind of like we get to kind of that both acceptance and our like a willingness to suspend judgment. Like,
ah,
okay,
yeah,
I recognize that
yeah,
that's there. I'm gonna keep
yeah.
going. Even though I've got that doubt, I'm gonna keep going. Suspend that judgment. Not gonna let it control me.
Those are words to
And I
live
don't
by.
think I wouldn't be able to do that without others.
Yeah.
Really. I think I'd be long gone if I was just kind of trying to do this on my own.
Well, what I think maybe what we're trying to say is that we should um, have tea parties where we invite friends and Mara.
Yes, yes. We have to.
Let's not. We don't have to invite Mara all by themselves, right? Like
No.
we can have friends there to support us.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Thank
Oh, Daniel, thank you for being such an
you,
amazing
Jack.
support. I really,
Oh, lovely conversation. I really enjoyed
yes,
this. It was
me
super
too.
helpful. Super.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Let's keep going.
All right, let's do